Hello and welcome to day 2 here at SMTA 2017 in Chicago. Yesterday got off to a brisk start as expected, but there were not a lot of new products on the floor. I think a lot of people are waiting for Productronica. My first guest joining me this morning is Keith Bryant. Keith is the global sales director, I think, for Exelon.
For electronics, yeah.
For electronics. Welcome, Keith. Good to see you.
Thanks, Trevor. It's very nice to be here.
Yeah. So let's first of all just talk about the show yesterday. I mean, there wasn't a lot new. The two things I saw were basically Ko-Young came out with a new sort of dashboard software system that ties together 4 components, one of them being their SPI, another being a library, and a couple of other components. But that was new, certainly. And another new product I saw was from Kojiscan. It was called Connect, which is basically ties into their track, trace, and control systems. What were your takeaways from yesterday?
Oh, pretty much the same as you. I always like this show because it has a really big conference attached to it, and it tends to bring in the more technical people, the engineers, the technicians, the technical managers, the quality managers, this kind of audience, which is much better for me for an exhibition than teams of purchasing people who only want to have commercial conversations.
Exactly. Yeah, you tend to get into a deeper level here for sure. Okay. So you also have a different hat that you wear back home, which is chairman of the SMART group, which is the Surface Mount Related Technologies group in the UK and Ireland. And you recently announced a tie-up, or is it a rebranding with SMTA? You're going to become SMTA Europe.
Well, yeah, I mean, depending on who you talk to, it's an amalgamation or an assimilation.
Okay.
Yeah. SMART Group has been around since 1986. It's done a really good job predominantly for the UK industry. We've tried to get into Europe and get let's say a larger footprint. We found it quite difficult because to do these things take a lot of time, they take good admin, and they're also relatively expensive. We had a joint conference last year with the SMTA in Amsterdam. This went tremendously well, and I think I've always known that the other industry association around the world that we're closest to in terms of, let's say, look and feel is the SMTA. And I think when we had a joint conference, people were starting to realize that, yes, there is an amount of commonality between the two things. By becoming part of the SMTA, effectively a European chapter, we're not going to run as a separate entity. We're going to sit under the umbrella of the SMTA, so the administration and everything else will be handled in the US. And in the UK, we will have a growing technical committee. We've already had people asking to join from outside the UK.
Okay.
So then we'll have a technical committee, and we'll be responsible for organizing and putting on the events, and we'll share the conference, which we hope is going to become an annual event. We already have it planned for next year, but we will share the management of that with headquarters.
Right.
So effectively we'll start as a European chapter. Maybe in 2 or 3 years we have enough members in certain countries, let's say Germany, where we can have a split off German chapter who can organize their own events in their own language, in their own country, and still be part of a larger organization which supports them.
Right. Well, that was going to be my next question, because obviously one of the barriers for SMART Group expanding into Europe was the pushback from Germany. And Germany, of course, is the biggest manufacturing country.
Yeah, and it's also the place where you could go to an electronics-related event twice every week for the whole year, because there is that much happening. That was our reason originally for holding the conference in Amsterdam. But again, if we get enough membership and we get enough groundswell, then it would be worth doing things there. Obviously, if you do something in the German language, you're limiting yourself to the audience. But those kind of events do seem to be very successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a different culture over there. They allow people to go to trade shows and conferences and that type of thing.
Yeah, I mean that's the other reason for doing this is, Our webinars are still holding up very strong. Our workshops are holding up strong, but the seminars that we do, we've noticed that the audience is dwindling a little bit.
Right.
So this is actually a way of opening everything up to a larger audience, potentially a larger footprint, however you want to describe it. And it also gives us some impetus. I mean, SMART's been around since 1986. A few people have been saying, well, are you still relevant to what's happening because everybody knows about Surface Mount now?
There's a lot happening in Surface Mount right now.
That's our argument, but it tends to happen on a global basis.
Right.
As you've said, the two key new things here, both related to Industry 4.0.
Yeah.
And Industry 4.0 is going to be a huge topic at Productronica for sure.
Sure.
But most of the technology and the people who are closely related to this, with the exception of one or two companies, are all European or American as opposed to English.
Right.
So it's hard to get experts to come and speak.
Right.
But thankfully we still get a lot of users coming to speak. But 4.0 is so new, nobody's really out there playing with it yet.
Exactly.
So it's hard for us to promote it to the industry because we don't have the technical knowledge and expertise.
Right.
Whereas with SMTA Europe, once we start looking for the people in Germany, the guys in Holland, there's also in the south of Europe some guys who are getting quite heavily into this, so that helps as well. Plus the fact, at the last event we had 2-3 speakers that came over from the US. Well, in fact, we had 2 came over from the US and 2 that we actually beamed in from the US.
Okay.
But it's that bigger footprint.
Now, I think it's very healthy, as you said. There's a common culture there between both, and I wish you great success with it. Moving on, of course, you do wear a third hat, which is occasionally you represent us as a roving reporter or send us reports from different shows around the world, because you're probably one of the most travelled people in this industry.
Yeah,
I think it's fair to say.
It seems to look like that, especially travelling to the conferences and exhibitions. Yes.
Right. So the last, a recent couple that you've been to was, of course, NEPCON Shenzhen, which I hear actually was revived, as it were, because it's been in the doldrums for a couple of years now. What was your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, they had the biggest number of exhibitors, they had the biggest floor space that they've ever had for that exhibition, and they had, for sure, the biggest audience.
Right. So China coming out the doldrums, basically.
Well, South China.
Right.
This exhibition now, it's rivaling the one in Shanghai. And also, internationally, I saw people there from Europe, I saw people there from the States. I even saw 2 guys there that I know that run distribution businesses in South Africa.
Right.
And they said, they were there looking for products that they could distribute. So they're looking for Asia manufacturers. And a lot of that type of manufacturing is around Shenzhen, it's not around Shanghai.
Yeah.
So
it's a very different show. I mean,
yeah.
It really is the engine room of China. Shanghai is more the corporate headquarters.
Yeah, and I think it's a good sign for the manufacturing, not only in China but for the whole of that region.
Right.
When that show is getting bigger, and everybody that I talked to that was there said best show we've had.
Yeah, great. So then you moved on to Delhi for Productronica, India. How did that fare?
Again, big show. Aisles were full on the first day at 11 o'clock in the morning, and the show started at 10. Lots of people looking at equipment, lots of people looking to grow. The Make in India initiative, which started in about this time, 2014. And a lot of these initiatives, 1 or 2 years, they're wonderful, and then they just peter out. That is actually gaining in strength.
Really?
3 or 4 of the companies I spoke to, Frontline being one, they are opening a new manufacturing center in the south of India because there is a regional grant that supports them. So a lot of companies are doing the same thing.
What about these electronics clusters that the government was setting up? Did they actually come to fruition? Or
they're most of them are starting to fill up, not only with local companies but also with multinationals that are moving in. As you know, India's got a lot of automotive industry, so a lot of the tier 2s and tier 3s, not, let's say, the huge multinationals, but maybe they have a manufacturing plant in Sweden, they have a manufacturing plant in Estonia, their next manufacturing plant is going to be in India. And even some of the people that are making materials are starting to actively manufacture. Humaseal have had a facility for a while. They started quite a basic way, just filling aerosols. And from talking to the guys now, before the end of this year, they're actually going to be mixing chemistry there.
Right.
So this is a big leap, because obviously lead times reduce. Stock is held a lot easier. Duties are not involved anymore. So there are a lot of people really, taking the Make in India seriously and investing in India.
If they continue to cut through the red tape, then it is going to become quite attractive. It's already an attractive big market, but it's just the bureaucracy and the red tape was one of the big things that was a drawback.
It's still challenging. The infrastructure is also still challenging in some areas. But by starting these industrial, let's call them electronics manufacturing clusters, they're actually helping, because they don't have to put infrastructure everywhere.
Right, you just have to put it around them.
So they're putting it around those areas.
Right. Makes a lot of sense.
That's helping quite a lot.
Right. Okay. Well, as I say, it's we're ever grateful for all of your reports. I want to thank you for joining us today, Keith, and no doubt we'll be hearing more or talking more, I'm sure, next month at Productronica.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
And I enjoy it. It's always a pleasure, Trevor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so what do you call it? If you want to see any or read any of Keith's reports, of course, they're going to be for the China show and for Productronica India. They are in the October issue of Global SMT and Packaging. After the break, I'll be coming back with my next guest, but thank you for joining us so far.
Sponsored by Panasonic, delivering smart factory solutions for any mix, any volume. Introducing the new NPM W2S. Learn more at panasonicfa.com.
And welcome back. My next guest is probably the HR guru of the United States, John Myers. Welcome, John. Nice to see you.
Welcome. What an introduction. Maybe a little much, but I'll take it.
Well, you're the go-to guy if somebody's looking for a new position in the electronics manufacturing industry. Your business identity is Step Beyond, stepbeyond.com. Tell us a little bit about it, and tell us what the current status is at the moment for hiring in the US.
Right, yeah, so the Step Beyond Solutions, I've been recruiting for electronics manufacturers for 27 years, since surface mount was the new hot thing. And we've really been growing this year. I've got a new team with another guy with 25 years SMT and EMS experience, a couple guys from the industry, so we've got over 100 years experience, even a global talent acquisition manager from Flex on our team. And it's just because the industry is growing. As back in 2012, everybody started needing business development managers, and for the last 5 years, 70% of my business has been business development managers for Tier 3, largely Tier 3 and 2 EMS. But in this past year, it's switched, and now 70% of my searches are in every other department: operations, quality, supply chain, SMT engineering, you name it.
Right.
And I still have the same number of business development searches. So it's the business development worked, it's grown, and now the whole company is growing.
All boats are rising at the moment, basically. Yeah. Are you noticing any skills gaps in there?
Yes, I mean, so many people have left the industry either through attrition, industry shrinking, or being retiring. And yes, it's hard to find them, and it's also so many of the people in engineering nowadays that are coming out of the schools are foreign nationals, and it's hard to get the H-1B visas. So many people are ITAR certified that they can't bring those
use
in.
them, yeah. Okay.
It's a challenge.
And and of course we've got Industry 4.0, which is the big thing coming into the industry at the moment, where people are needing people that can make sense of data. But no sign yet of people really looking for people in that area?
Everybody's talking about it. I'm not hearing jobs saying that we need somebody with this experience so much.
Right.
I think it's really coming, and of course the tier 1s, tier 2s are going to implement it first. The tier 3s are going to have to catch up. But what I'm seeing is that as the industry has aged, there's so many guys, my age, 50s and 60s and 70s, that are looking at, maybe I don't want to do this the rest of my life. One executive, he looked at his partner and said, "Do we want to retire here?" And it's like, "No, sure, kind of don't." And so they sold their company.
Right.
But I think that next generation, I'm seeing this next generation, guys in their 30s and 40s coming in with that enthusiasm of a younger man who says, "I want to do this for 20 years."
Yeah. We're starting to see it already. I mean, as I said to you earlier, I saw it at Apex for the first time. It's like a sea change of sort of the older people starting to retire out of the industry now, and but some new young blood coming in, which is quite refreshing.
We're seeing the conferences here, a lot of engineers,
right.
younger, earlier career engineers.
And that's right, and they've all got to learn, they've all got to understand. It's, things that are...
There's hope.
Yeah, things that we think are pretty standard, but, of course, to them it's new.
Yeah.
Yeah,
good. Some of the old gray hairs are still around. Good thing to mentor and shepherd them, teach them the tricks. Yeah.
So you've also moved into a bit of consultancy. Can you explain some of the services you're offering now?
Well, what's happened is because understand the industry so much, and know executives, and almost so many companies across the country, and so many of them will come to me and say, "We need a business development manager." And I'll talk to them, and it'll be like, "You don't have a sales system in place. You don't have a marketing system. You're not ready for that person."
Right.
And so then I've got consultants that I've worked with, people I've placed, people coming from tier 1s and 2s that have incredible experience they can bring to these people and come in as a fractional or a virtual chief marketing officer, VP of sales. I've got people from equipment, supply chain, and everything can come in, and we can say, what's your challenge to your next level? And these consultants can come in a short period of time, give you something world class.
Really?
And one guy in Michigan has 30 companies in his area.
Yeah.
How does he compete against them? Well, he's got to differentiate, create a marketing plan, and he's one of these younger next generation guys, and he will come in and he will wipe out the people who don't change.
Right.
Because nowadays, I was talking to one executive who built a tier 2. He looked at 102 companies, evaluated 50 of them, bought 3 of them, built a tier 2 EMS out of it.
Right.
And he said that's the thing is, he saw that they get to 25 million, and that's where they cap in a region. If you want to grow, you need to add a couple regions, add a low-cost solution,
right.
and then you can create a real nice-sized company that somebody, probably a tier 2, will want to come along and buy you.
Right, exactly. Well, I think you're in a good position to help people with these types of services, and I wish you every success with it.
Well, being a guy in my 50s, I identify with these guys. It's like, I would like to go play for a while too, and cash out on this 30 years of hard work I just put in.
So would we all. But yeah. No, I wish you every success with it, John, and I want to thank you for coming in today.
I appreciate y'all you do.
All right,
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. So coming up after the break, we have one more guest coming in, Bill Bader from INEMI. He'll be joining us shortly.
Sponsored by Panasonic. Delivering smart factory solutions for any mix, any volume. Introducing the new NPM W2S. Learn more at panasonicfa.com.
And welcome back. My final guest today is Bill Bader. He's the CEO of INEMI. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you, Trevor.
Okay. So, you released the 2017 roadmap earlier this year, and now I believe we're starting on 2019.
Correct.
Tell us some of the things let's start by some of the things you learned from 2017 roadmap.
Well, one of the things we did for the first time in the 2017 roadmap was we added a chapter on Internet of Things. Which is a three-letter acronym that is very challenging to really understand how it applies to you and your company in the supply chain. Where truly are the opportunities? So we added a chapter that went into some depth of analysis of what are the true market sizes and what do we think the real growth rates are going to be. Moving to the future in areas like wearable, Internet of Things device, and industrial IoT, which covers everything from smart cities to heavy industrial things like airplanes and trains, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of very good information and a tremendous amount of interest out there in the industry. It's our first effort. And I think the next time we do it, we'll get into much more technical detail of critical deliverables in that particular field, critical manufacturing deliverables. What are those challenges? This time was a very good assessment of the markets and the products.
So move into the smart factory space.
Yeah, now moving ahead to 2019, I'm glad you asked that question. We are going to add some emphasis around smart manufacturing. And we had a long discussion about it yesterday at my board of directors, and there is the question that we always struggle with at INEMI is how do we add maximum value for our membership through intelligent collaboration, right? We manage collaborative R&D projects where we get 8 to 20 companies working together on tough problems. And a holistic implementation of smart manufacturing that gets your factory to the point where you have the data and the analytics necessary to predictably see a problem coming before it happens. And that could be in the material supply chain, or it could be in a process parameter, a piece of equipment, a piece of tooling. To get to that point, is quite challenging. Few companies have done that yet. There are some fascinating examples which you can look at and say, wow, if you do it right, you can do some great things. But they are pretty isolated examples. And what we will do is work on identifying how do we play. What are the critical work activities we take forward by studying what's out there. It'll be a study of what's already been learned and what's out in the marketplace, and then an analysis of what are the critical issues and the gaps that still remain, and then we will launch work forward from there.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a huge area, and there's so many different people involved in it. You get different players in like Hermes Standard, the CFX from IPC, the OML system, and then you've got companies like Optimal. There's a whole range of different offerings out there.
There's some very, some intriguing analytical companies that are out there as well.
Yeah. Some taking a different approach. Companies like Optimal are looking at it that they're protecting the customer's brand. So they're actually, in as much that they are measuring all these analytics coming out of these factories and then reporting to the customer what's going on, which is upsetting some of the contract manufacturers.
Yeah.
Because then they're going back to contract manufacturers with data. But okay, so looking back at the 2019 roadmap coming forward, what other areas are you looking to concentrate on?
We continue to grow the depth of understanding in photonics in particular. It's a field that has been in kind of the emerging state for a long time. And it really hasn't launched into cost competitive volume ramps yet. But we have been doing some very in-depth roadmap assessment work in the area of photonics that I think will take us in a direction in the next 2 to 4 years where that market will really move. That technology will really move. We will have compelling manufacturing capabilities ready to the point where you can apply photonics cost effectively in a lot of different areas. The technology itself is very appealing because of speed and power.
Yeah.
Two very desirable things in electronics: low power, very high speeds.
Yeah.
But it's cost. It's
Costly,
expensive.
and the industry just isn't ready for it. It's going to take a sea change. Yeah.
No, and the industry's been working as a bunch of islands. It hasn't been working cooperatively, and
Yeah.
we are helping to pull it together cooperatively. We, with the AIM Institute in New York State, that's funded by the federal government, are doing that. So.
How many members do you have at the moment?
We have 92 members, and I think it's clear to understand we are a global organization. We're talking a global SMT here.
Of course, yeah.
And 50% or greater than 50 to 60% of our companies are headquartered outside of North America.
Okay.
If you look at the country of headquarters, number 2 and 3 in the world are Taiwan and Japan, behind North America. So, we are very global. We have
some
an office.
China members as well, do you know?
Yeah, we have some China
Because
members.
You opened an office there.
Yeah, we have China members in Malaysia. Yeah, we have an office in Shanghai, and a managing director of INEMI in Asia that resides there. So she works the Asia Pacific region, and we have a resource in Japan as well. If you're in Japan, you need to be able to have a Japanese rep to be effective. So.
Yeah, you can't do that remotely.
Yeah, we have resources in Europe, so we're spread out around the
good
world.
footprint.
Yeah. Not a lot of people, but in places where we need them. So.
Yeah, but these 90 odd members, they're some of the biggest companies in this industry.
Yeah, they are. We have great strength in the supply chain. This is a wonderful show for me to go to because of the opportunity to interact with the membership.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Bill, it's fascinating to hear some of the things that you're looking at developing in 2019. Great to hear that the organization is prospering and going forward.
Yep.
And thank you for coming in and joining us today.
Yeah, well, thank you, Trevor. It's always a pleasure.
Yes, thank you. So that brings us to the end of our program from SMTAI this year. Thank you for joining us. We'll be posting these, of course, live on Facebook and other globalsmt.net. Till then, that's it from me. Thank you for joining us.